The battle in the Infinity Castle has started. Kaigaku has been killed, and we are shown that Giyu and Tanjiro are running across looking for any upper moons. That is when they start hearing a loud tremor that shakes the whole ground. Tanjiro notices that it is coming closer and closer as he recognizes a similar smell. And then breaking through the ceiling, Akaza jumps down, crushing everything around him. So get ready to watch one of the most emotion-packed fights that you will ever witness, and don't miss a single second because this fight will make you cry. Akaza looks at Tanjiro and says that it's been a long time, and that he is surprised to see that a weakling like Tanjiro had survived this long. Akaza then leaps towards Tanjiro, trying to punch his head off, but Tanjiro jumps behind Akaza in time, brings the blade near his arm, and slices his hand off. This makes Tanjiro assured, who was previously doubting whether he is strong enough to engage in combat with Akaza or not. But then, within the blink of an eye, Akaza appears in front of Tanjiro, trying to punch his head off again. But this attempt of Akaza goes in vain too, as Tanjiro reacts just in time and slices the demon across his face. This leaves both Akaza and Giyu in utter shock, as Giyu observes that Tanjiro's techniques have improved by a lot, and he is definitely a Hashira-level swordsman now. This takes him back to the time when he first saw Tanjiro on the snowy mountain, who at the time was bowing his head in despair for Giyu to spare his sister Nezuko's life. Seeing just how much Tanjiro has grown, Akaza remembers the words said by Rengoku. "This boy isn't weak, don't insult him." Akaza, taking his fighting stance, says that he accepts Tanjiro is not weak anymore, and he will show his respect to him. Giyu then uses water-breathing third foot, Dance of the Swift Current, to attack Akaza. Akaza notices that it's the water Hashira, and says that it's been 50 years since he last ran into someone so good. Then Akaza unleashes destructive kill war style towards Giyu. But our water Hashira uses the 11th form of water breathing and slices right through Akaza's attack. The demon compliments Giyu by saying that the technique he just used was never used by the last water Hashira Akaza killed. But he is interrupted by Tanjiro, who uses Scorching Crimson Mirror on him. Akaza but disappears and attacks Tanjiro from behind. Tanjiro's head is about to be knocked off, but he is saved by Giyu, who slices the hand Akaza was attacking with. Giyu is about to attack again, but Akaza reattaches his arm and repels the attack. Tanjiro then tries slicing Akaza's leg, but is kicked away. Tanjiro blocked most of the attack with his sword, but just a slight scrape that hit made him bleed from his nose. Now, this detail not many of you might have noticed, but Akaza was trying to destroy Tanjiro's sense of smell here, as he had observed that Tanjiro's smelling ability is extremely good. After this, Akaza engages in combat with Giyu. Akaza was extremely pleased by Giyu's skills, and asks for his name. Giyu denies by saying that he would never give his name to a demon. Akaza then kicks Giyu and sends him flying. Tanjiro, seeing this, shouts, which reveals Giyu's name to Akaza. Tanjiro and Akaza then simultaneously attack each other. This sends Tanjiro sliding to a corner. Akaza then praises Tanjiro again, saying that he is feeling pure happiness for the boy because the last he saw Tanjiro, he was just a weakling lying down on the ground. The demon then starts talking about Rengoku.
"I'm glad Kyojuro died that night. He likely wouldn't have been able to get any stronger than when I saw him then, and he had that dumb worldview about wanting to stay a human."
Listening to Akaza badmouthing Rengoku, Tanjiro gets furious. Akaza continues by saying that the weak make him vomit, and it is the law of nature that the weak gets eliminated by the strong. Tanjiro cuts him off, saying that the words said by Akaza are wrong. He explains by saying,
"Newborn babies are weaker than everyone else. They need someone to help them in order to live. You're the same, Akaza. You may not remember, but when you were a baby, someone protected and helped you. That's why you're alive now. The strong should aid and protect the weak. Then the weak will become strong, and in turn, they will aid and protect those weaker than them. That is the law of nature."
These words hit Akaza on the soul, and we are shown that he releases his fist. Akaza is shown standing there thinking how much he hates the guts of Tanjiro. Then suddenly, a man appears behind Akaza, repeating the same words. The mysterious man puts a hand on Akaza's shoulder, but as Akaza tries moving it away, he realizes that there is no one standing behind him. Tanjiro looks confused, seeing the demon swing his hand in the open air. Akaza then gives Tanjiro a death stare and rushes towards him. He throws a hard punch, which Tanjiro barely dodges. The Demon Slayer says that Akaza has become unbelievably fast all of a sudden, showing that till now Akaza was just playing with them, but now he is serious. Akaza attacks Tanjiro from below. Tanjiro blocks most of it again, but it makes him cough blood. Tanjiro notices that Akaza is targeting his vital points as precisely as a compass, as if something is attracting his attacks like a magnet. Akaza attacks Tanjiro with a deadly kick, but the boy dodges and reacts with an attack of his own, aiming for the demon's neck. This catches Akaza by surprise, but he manages to move out of the attack range. But he realizes that the attack sliced through half of his neck. The two of them continue to be engaged in the battle for some more time, but as Tanjiro tries attacking Akaza, the demon catches the blade between his arms, intending to break it. To prevent this, Tanjiro headbutts Akaza, which breaks his nose, but does not loosen Akaza's grip. The Demon Slayer then tries kicking Akaza, but this doesn't help either. Akaza is ready to snap the blade, but then someone chops off his hands, and we are shown Giyu standing there with his blade in hand, staring at the demon, saying that now Akaza has angered him. And as we see the face of the Hashira, it shows that the Demon Slayer mark has appeared. This is a mark that appears on powerful demon slayers in a life or death situation. This increases the physical strength and agility of the demon slayers, allowing them to react faster and move more swiftly. With this new power boost, Giyu swings his blade towards Akaza. Surprisingly, the demon couldn't read the attack, and Giyu almost slices through half of his neck. Akaza notices that Giyu's speed has increased dramatically since the mark appeared. He then faces Giyu head-on, and they both exchange blows, but this time, Giyu got hit as well. Tanjiro is shocked by how quickly Akaza again started matching Giyu's speed. As Giyu is keeping Akaza busy for the time being, this gives Tanjiro some time to think about Akaza's attacks, and why are they as accurate as a magnet? Tanjiro wonders how Akaza is able to detect attacks launched at him even if they are from his blind spot. This reminds Tanjiro of a word used by Akaza in the battle against Rengoku. The word was battle spirit. This takes him back to an old conversation he had with Inosuke. Inosuke explains to Tanjiro that he can sense whenever someone stares at him with a murderous intent, and the area of the body which the opponent is about to attack starts to prick and sting. But if someone has no intent of killing him, then it becomes very hard to notice that person. Just how Inosuke was having a hard time sensing the old lady, as she had no intention of harming him. This clicks a switch in Tanjiro's head. He realizes that the compass technique Akaza uses while fighting detects the murderous intent of his opponent, and that is how he is able to sense the attacks that are coming from his blind spots. But his thoughts are interrupted by the battle. He sees an opening and swings at Akaza's neck from behind, but the blade is caught mid-air, and Akaza swings at Tanjiro's wide-open flank. But this time, Tanjiro feels something strange in the area Akaza is about to attack. It feels as if he knows where the attack will hit. He dodges the blow, which barely scrapes him. Giyu then attacks Akaza, which loosens his grip on Tanjiro's blade, and Tanjiro jumps back. Realizing the way he just dodged the attack, Tanjiro finally understands Akaza's entire fighting style. This takes him back to a small flashback of his father, Tanjiro, who used to stay sick all of the time. Tanjiro remembered the time when he saw his father Tanjiro doing the dance of the fire god. Tanjiro asks Tanjiro how he is able to perform the dance from dusk till dawn, despite being sick all of the time. Tanjiro replies to this by saying that in all of these years he never once felt that the dance was tough. Tanjiro also mentions that if the dance is performed with correct breath and movements, one can see what is called a see-through world. Then one night, 10 days before his death, Tanjiro woke up Tanjiro and asked the boy to come along with him. He took Tanjiro a little far away from the house, carrying an axe in hand. There they came across an enormous bear, facing directly at Tanjiro's father. This bear had been terrorizing the people who inhabited the mountains for quite some time now, and was about to attack the Kamado house. Tanjiro was very frightened by the sight of such a big bear, but his father Tanjiro seemed to be not worried at all. Tanjiro then said that he is sorry about the bear's hunger, but if it comes any closer to their house and tries harming his family, then Tanjiro would have to kill it. The bear roared loudly. This made Tanjiro tremble in fear as he knew that his father had no hunting skills. But to the little boy's surprise, his father leaped in the air against the bear and beheaded it with the axe he was holding. Tanjiro now understood that the reason his father was able to kill such a big bear was because he could see the see-through world. This was also the reason why Tanjiro was able to dodge Akaza's attack that time, which if not dodged, would have killed Tanjiro then and there. He realized that when he dodged the attack, at that moment for a split second, he entered the see-through world. When one enters the see-through world, that person's movement intuition and speed of evading attacks increases dramatically. Tanjiro finally puts the pieces together and realizes that if he attacks Akaza with no murderous intent, he can enter the see-through world. And because Akaza's compass technique detects the murderous intent in a person, if Tanjiro manages to have no murderous intent while attacking Akaza, then it will be impossible for Akaza to notice him. Now back to the fight. Giyu is starting to lose the upper hand he had up until now, as Akaza's attacks just get more and more accurate. Giyu is then shown to swing his blade, but Akaza swiftly moves and punches Giyu's blade from the side, breaking it into two. Akaza then says farewell to Giyu and punches him through his stomach. But wait. Before Akaza could land the punch, his hand was chopped off by Tanjiro, who has now entered the see-through world. This leaves Giyu in utter shock, and Akaza notices that something about Tanjiro has changed, which is really bad. Akaza instantly unleashes technique deployment, sending attacks at both Giyu and Tanjiro. Tanjiro, who can see through, dodges the attack, but Giyu gets hit pretty fatally, which drops him to his knees. Akaza, thinking that Tanjiro died from the attack, asks Giyu to become a demon and not die worthless deaths like Rengoku and Tanjiro. But little does Akaza know, Tanjiro is standing right behind him, who has entered the see-through world and erased his presence. Tanjiro then starts moving towards Akaza, shouting that he will cut the demon's head off. Akaza swings his attack at Tanjiro's head, but Tanjiro ducks, and that's when Akaza realizes that he is not able to detect anything from his destructive kill compass. And Tanjiro has completely erased his own presence. Tanjiro then leaps into the air, swinging his blade, and finally chops Akaza's head off, leaving Giyu surprised and the Demon Moon in utter disbelief. But wait, Akaza is not dead yet. He stands there, thinking that he has never come across a person with no battle spirit. Even babies emit a faint battle spirit, and yet Tanjiro somehow managed to make his entire battle spirit disappear in just a second. Tanjiro's eyes have no hatred or anger in them. There is no intent to murder or fight. The thing captured in his eyes is the state of Anata, a state which Akaza always wanted to achieve. But as Akaza's head is about to fall, he tries putting it back in place with his hands, saying he can still fight. Giyu sees this and throws his blade at Akaza's head, which makes it fall down and disintegrate. Tanjiro, who is at his limits now, thinks that they have won. But to the Demon Slayer's horror, Akaza's body doesn't crumble. Then suddenly, the body starts moving without a head. Akaza then kicks Tanjiro. This attack sends the boy crashing into a wall and he faints. Akaza then moves towards Tanjiro, trying to finish him off. But Giyu reacts in time, slashing the demon and shifting Akaza's attention away from Tanjiro and onto himself, shouting,
"Hold it! I'm still alive here. If you want to kill Tanjiro, you'll have to get through me first."
Akaza thinks of Giyu as an eyesore, and as Akaza is about to attack Giyu, his hand is stopped by someone. It was a girl with tears in her eyes, saying,
"Hakuji-san, stop already."
And the previous memories of Akaza's human life start flowing in. And trust me, this part of the story will make you shed tears like never before. When Akaza was a human, his name was Hakuji. Hakuji was an 11-year-old boy who used to steal money from other people to bring medicines for his sick father, whom Hakuji deeply cared about. But for committing such acts like stealing from other people, Hakuji was punished regularly. He was taken to the magistrate's office and beaten up badly to make him pay for his act of thieving. Despite this, Hakuji continued stealing from people because the medicines for his father were too expensive. One day after learning that Hakuji was captured yet again by the villagers, his father felt he was the reason for his son's suffering, and he committed suicide. Upon hearing the news that his father hanged himself, Hakuji cried for days, because the boy really cared for his father and was ready to die for him. After this, Hakuji went and started beating up the people who had previously caught him, asking why it was his father who had to live such a miserable life and die such a bad death. After beating them all up and letting out the anger of his father's death, Hakuji saw a smiling man clapping and praising him. The man was very impressed by Hakuji's strength and asked the boy to join his dojo, saying that he has no students under him. Hakuji got extremely angry and attacked the smiling man, but the man beat the crap out of Hakuji with his fists. After this, Hakuji had no choice but to go along with the smiling man, because due to his crimes, Hakuji was kicked out of his village. The man introduced himself as Keizu. He says he runs a martial arts dojo but has no students under him, but since he has to leave for work every day, he wants Hakuji to take up a task for him, take care of Keizu's sick daughter. He mentions that it's a tough job, and Keizu's wife drowned herself from the fatigue of nursing their daughter. Keizu then introduces his sick daughter to Hakuji, and mentions that her name is Koyuki. As soon as Hakuji looks at the sick girl, he is reminded of his father. Koyuki had a really weak body, and had to be attended on throughout the night. Hakuji had to change both the cloth on her forehead and her clothes. She had to drink water frequently, and whenever she went to the bathroom, Hakuji had to carry her. But Hakuji was never bothered by this. He said that his body was more resilient than other people, because he had nursed his father before. Once when Hakuji was taking care of Koyuki as usual, she started apologizing to him, saying that because of her, Hakuji cannot play outside like other people. To this, Hakuji replied that he never thought of playing around ever before, and whatever spare time he gets, he spends it training with his master. Koyuki then says that there are going to be fireworks tonight, and Hakuji should go watch them. To this, Hakuji replies,
"Maybe once your dizziness goes away, I'll carry you to the bridge so we both can watch. Even if we can't go today, there's next year and the year after that. We can just go then."
Listening to this, Koyuki started tearing up in the middle of the conversation. This is because of the condition in which Koyuki was. She was not expecting to live another year. But listening to Hakuji's words gave her hope. Hope that there is next year. Hope that there is a chance that she can be cured. After this, we are shown as to why the dojo owned by Keizu had no students. The reason is that this dojo was gifted to Keizu by an old man, whom Keizu saved from a bunch of mountain bandits. The old man was so impressed by Keizu's Soryu fighting style that he gave him a dojo. But the people of the Kenjutsu dojo next door wanted it for themselves, and they harassed Keizu's dojo. That is why there were no students. But training in that dojo with his master Keizu and nursing Koyuki healed Hakuji's heart as time passed. After 3 years, Hakuji turned 18 and Koyuki turned 16. She stopped lying down all the time and was starting to be able to live normally, all thanks to Hakuji's care for her. Then one day, Hakuji's master called him. He then with a smile asked Hakuji to take over the dojo and marry Koyuki. Listening to this, Hakuji's face sparkled with happiness. And looking at Koyuki, she had fallen in love with Hakuji too. Hakuji delightedly agreed to this, and at that point, he swore to protect those two people at the cost of his own life. He then later went to see fireworks with Koyuki, where she asked him to be her husband, to which Hakuji happily agreed. But who would have imagined that things could take such a deadly turn? Hakuji went to his father's grave to tell him about his marriage, but when he returned, he heard a devastating news. Keizu and Koyuki had been poisoned to death. People from the Kenjutsu dojo poisoned the well that Keizu and Koyuki used to drink water from. They did this out of jealousy, because they couldn't beat Keizu or Hakuji in a direct fight. Hearing this, Hakuji was more shocked than words could possibly describe. And the next incident that happened is registered in the magistrate's office. After his master and Koyuki were poisoned, Hakuji went to the Kenjutsu dojo and barehandedly killed all 67 people present there. Crushed skulls, smashed inwards. The bodies were beaten to a point where they lost their original form. The shock even caused the surviving maid to lose her mind. And the record was so absurd and preposterous that it was regarded as a fictitious tale for 30 years before being erased completely. After taking his revenge, Hakuji was walking outside, still covered in blood. And that's when he crossed paths with Muzan Kibutsuji. Muzan saw the potential that Hakuji holds and the commotion he created, and then pierced his hand through Hakuji's head, erasing all his memories and turning him into Akaza the demon. We are then taken to the current fight and shown that Tanjiro suddenly woke up after he had previously passed out. Then, to Tanjiro's horror, he saw that Akaza's head is starting to regenerate, and he is about to attack Giyu, who is barely keeping up. Tanjiro picks up his blade and is about to slice off Akaza's neck once again, but the blade unfortunately slips out of his grip, due to Tanjiro not being able to put any strength into his hands anymore. Tanjiro had no option, so he punched Akaza instead. Although the punch didn't harm Akaza a lot, looking at Tanjiro reminded him of his master Keizu. It then hits Akaza about the bad deeds he has committed. He bloodied his master's precious Soryu style and couldn't respect his father's last words. Akaza then says he finally knows whom to kill. Tanjiro, standing across the room, notices that Akaza is about to unleash his destruction style, which will bring Giyu into his attack range. Tanjiro leaps towards Giyu, trying to get away from the attack, but in mid-air he notices something. Akaza had a smile on his face. And the next thing we know, Akaza unleashes the attack. As the dust clears, we see that Tanjiro and Giyu are completely unharmed. And then we realize that Akaza used his attack on himself. Tanjiro and Giyu sit there wondering why Akaza would attack himself. And Tanjiro mentions that for a second he even smelled gratitude from Akaza. We are then taken into the thoughts of Akaza, in which he is trying to stop his body from regenerating, saying that Tanjiro won the battle fair and square, and that Akaza lost at the very moment when Tanjiro sliced off his head. Then Akaza, or should I say Hakuji, sees his father standing right in front of him. Hakuji kneels down in front of his father, apologizing for not being able to fix himself. Then, his master's spirit keeps a hand on Hakuji's head, saying that although he can't take Hakuji to heaven, still, he won't ever abandon his student. But suddenly, a hand grips his hair. It was Muzan, provoking Akaza to get up and fight, since he wanted to become strong from the beginning. Akaza is then about to get up to fight once again, but he is stopped by the love of his life, Koyuki. Then, for a split second, both Koyuki and Muzan appear in front of him, and his two personalities start to take over his body. But at the end, Hakuji's demon personality was defeated, and he hugs Koyuki tightly, apologizing for not being able to protect her when she needed him the most. Koyuki, with tears running down her face, says that she is glad Hakuji remembers them, and welcomes her husband with open arms, with both of them passing to the afterlife together. And Hakuji's demon body stops regenerating and disintegrates, leaving Giyu and Tanjiro victorious in the fight. So ladies and gentlemen, that was the entire fight of Akaza versus Giyu and Tanjiro. Leave your thoughts about the video down below in the comments section. I will be covering the entire Infinity Castle arc on this channel, so make sure to subscribe to not miss out. In fact, I have already covered the fights of Upper Moon 2 and Upper Moon 6, which you can watch by clicking here. So that's all for this video. See you in the next one.